Okay.
Okay, so again, my name's Michelle Parker. We have several board members who are on this meeting tonight, and I'll introduce them all in just a minute so you can match names and faces and know of different people that you can reach out to. But just the housekeeping first. If you're just joining us, you'll see your own image. Maybe you're familiar with Zoom, but if you are not, that's totally okay. If you look at your image and hover over it, you'll see 3 dots appear in the top right-hand corner, and if you click on that, you'll see an option to rename yourself. Click on that, and if you could add the school that you're from next to your name, and if you'd like to add your pronouns, you can add that also. That would be super. Throughout the meeting, I'm going to keep people muted, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And as you have questions, you can just put them in the chat box, and then when we open up to big Q&A at the end, then we'll have you raise your hand, and if you'd like to ask a question in your own voice, you'll be able to do that. So that is happening. The other thing, I just want to acknowledge that it's been a really tough couple of weeks for a lot of people in our community, and so I know it's a lot to come to something like this tonight, and we appreciate you taking the time, but also recognize that people might be feeling really exhausted and taxed. And we love seeing your faces, but if you feel like you want to not have your video on and just have your audio on, please feel free to do that if you just need a little bit more space during this time, because I know it's a difficult time for a lot of people. All right, I think the last thing that I'll tell you before I introduce the other board members is that we are going to be, as I said, recording this meeting, and it will be shared with you all, and you can share it with other people who are going to be new officers next year. I'll share it with you by Friday, and it will also be posted on our website, which is sfpta.org, and it will also be on our YouTube channel. If you just look up 2nd District PTA on YouTube, you will find it, and that's where we've been putting all of the recordings of our 411 meetings this spring, and that's where they will continue to live. So you know where to find some additional resources there, or like I said, on our website. So let's go ahead and do a few intros. I'm going to, I'll just read through the list. Maybe you can raise your hand and wave when I call your name. Albert Coe is our president of the district PTA. Sharon Olson is the head of communications. Terry Norbury is an advisor. He's been part of our board for a long time, he's an expert in sort of financial matters, so he's a good person. Our treasurer is not on the call tonight, so he's a good person for a lot of that. Carrie Gray is a past president, and she's an advisor on a board. Carrie can wave hello. Let's see, scrolling down the list, seeing if I missed anybody. I think I got everybody. Okay. All right, great. So I think that's it for housekeeping. I'm going to unshare my screen. Well, actually, I'm going to unshare my screen, and I'm going to put the agenda up, Carrie, and then you can take it away.
Okay, and turn on screen sharing for me too.
Okay. Yeah, here we go. Whoa, there. Let's try that again. It keeps doing this. I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. All right. Do you want to go through the agenda and then get us started, Carrie?
Sure, absolutely. Hi. As Michelle said, I know folks have a lot on their minds, and so I do really appreciate everyone being here because it shows your commitment to your school and to your school community, and I really appreciate that. So today we are going to talk a little bit about what are the things that you absolutely have to do at the end of the school year to finish the term, and what you will and what the new officers will need to do over the summer before the school year starts. Although that's a big question mark too, isn't it? And then Albert will talk a little bit about some of his great advice about how to transition to new personalities, new relationships, and new situations. So I am going to share my screen with you because if anybody has ever taken,
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Hold on. Carrie, I muted you accidentally. Hold on a second. Sorry about that, Carrie.
no worries, I need a little muting every now and then. So if anybody has ever taken a training with me or asked me for advice or ran into me at a meeting, you know that mostly how I train people is by showing you how to find the resources that I will be sharing with you. So there are two great places to learn about more about transitioning from one board to the next board. One is obviously our own second district PTA website, and the tab that says running your PTA actually has a whole board transition section. And the new officer training is where, as Michelle mentioned, we've put the recordings of the online training that we did on May 30th. So, and I know the question usually, there was a question already in the chat about how do you find out about upcoming trainings? Well, guess what? We have a calendar too. So our own website is a really good resource for learning more about what we're doing in San Francisco. And a lot of the resources on our website actually come from the California State PTA website, because your own school is part of our district PTA, and our district is part of the state PTA. So many of the questions that you have at your school have been answered at another school at another time, and people have spent a lot of, I guess, time and attention doing a good job with responses to these things. So both our website and the California PTA website have advice on transitioning from one board to the next. And so you can read this all yourself in your own time, but I think the most important, don't be scared by the idea of a procedure book. I think the most important advice, just in terms of logistics, are before you finish your term, you'll need to transition the information that you have to the next person in your job. And the information that you have is going to be either online. Maybe you have a Dropbox or a box or Google Docs where you share information. Or maybe your information is on your hard drive in your computer, and you want to make sure that everybody and the incoming board has access to the same documents and rules, documents and programs documents that you have. And a couple of good things to do also in your transition at your school is to make sure that your communications are set up so that the incoming officers will receive the communications from the second district PTA when we announce trainings and other things that you'll need to do, but also so that people will know where to find you. And one of the things a lot of schools do now is they create email aliases. So somebody can email president@sfpta, and it will go to whomever is the president at the district PTA. Say treasurer@sfpta.org, auditor@sfpta.org. So that's, I think for me, one of the first things I think is important is to make sure that your communication, and this is important throughout your term, that your communication is transitioned very clearly. You'll also want to announce to your school who the new officers are. Congratulations. They're going to really admire you, especially this year. Everyone will really appreciate your help. And then something that not everybody does, but some people do, that I found really helpful, I was PTA president at 2 different schools, is to read your bylaws. If you don't know where your bylaws are, the second district keeps a copy, and your bylaws may need updating. And the bylaws are the rules that your PTA uses to, those are the rules for running your PTA. And that's where you'll find the information about how much your dues are, how many times, how often you meet and what day of the week, how many officers you have, and what's quorum. That's the question that comes up a lot. What's my quorum? So these, this advice is all within this CAPTA checklist, including, and the other thing on CAPTA, which I find really helpful, and we're going to be sending this out to you, the link directly to this checklist. So we have people on the board who have been treasurers and financial officers. And so one of the most important things you can do at the end of your year is to finish paying your bills and do an audit, so your new officers will start the year off with a fresh set of books. You'll also, at this point, you'll also need to change your signatories on the bank accounts. This is going to be this is especially challenging for some banks, because you need to go in person. So you've closed your books, you've given the records to the auditor. The auditor is going, and the records will include your minutes and your bank statements and any returned checks. But we have more information on that in our financial officer training. And then, so you can have there's an actual checklist here, this PDF that you can download and check off the little boxes if you want to. But the most important thing is to get the end of the year bills paid and to do that end of the year audit. Another thing you might do is, if you do have expenses over the summer, you may need to release the funds to start the next year's budget. You'll also want to meet with your incoming board all together. And at this point, because this is June, I suspect many of you have already drafted your budget. And because of the current financial situation, that is going to be a pretty emerging document over the next year. So by now you would have done your draft budget, and you would have deposited money into your trust account if that's what your school does. And so over the summer, you would release the money so that you can pay bills over the summer as they come in. There's a lot on this list. I'm not even sure exactly what people already know. So I just wanted to point you in the areas where you could find the actual checklist of things to do. And you would also know that both on the Second District website and the CAPTA website, they're both kind of practical reasons, practical things to do, but also just good advice about starting your term right. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. The most important thing to do is to send us your list of to put your new officers into PTA EZ. That is kind of important, so that we can make sure you stay in our communications. And the Second District has, as I mentioned before, we have listservs for all the officers. So that's why we need your officer emails and addresses, so that we can send you information over the summer and stay in touch with you and invite you to these nice 411 sessions.
Carrie,
so Michelle, I was going to say, is there something in particular that I needed to?
No, I think I'd love to see if there are questions, and maybe everybody can lower their hands next to your name, so that if you have a hand raised, we can actually call on you for a question at that point. But one thing that I just wanted to note, because Sharon put a note in the chat box about putting your officer lists in PTA EZ, and there might be some people on this call who have no idea what PTA EZ is. So I wondered, Sharon, do you want to take a second to talk about what it is and how people can get in if they don't know?
I'll go ahead and put it on the screen.
Oh, wait, I need to also unmute her. That would be really helpful. Sorry. Actually, I'm going to just unmute. It gets complicated when I try to keep everybody.
That's okay. And people can self-mute.
Right.
These are PTA leaders, Michelle. They have initiative and proficiency with technology now.
Exactly. All right, Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, PTA EZ is both a communication tool and also a financial tool. And even if your individual unit or school as the case may be, does not use PTA Easy as an accounting tool, you can definitely still input the information for your new officers under, let's see, can you guys, did you actually can you log in and then we'll show
Oh, I
them
don't know
what
if I
to do?
can. I always have trouble logging in because I use Chrome. That's why I only kind of like skipped over the second district thing because, oh man, who knows what my login is?
Okay,
Tell
so,
me.
all right, so let's just leave it here for a second, Carrie. And then ultimately, when you log in and either your president, either the outgoing president or your outgoing treasurer, if it's not the same officer that's going to stay on, should have the login information, and they should transition that obviously to you. But once you log in the upper right hand corner, it will indicate a window where it will say admin or
There it is.
okay, and
Whoops. Nope. Wrong one. Okay, Gray.
okay.
I think Terry did this. That's my final answer. Nope.
Okay. So anyway, it'll be in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see 3 icons. Once you log in, it'll say good evening, whatever the login is. For me, it says Sharon. Home, admin, and help. And if you click on the admin button, which is the center one, it'll bring up information, and it will ask you what year did you want to enter your new officers in. And let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that all of your officers were just in their first year and you're continuing on, then you can actually go to the present year and just copy them over into the next year. Or you can also go to your current. So let's just say for me, I was in communications and I am planning to be the communications person next year. If I pull up this year's information, then I can just say, okay, copy Sharon's information over into the 2020-2021 school year, and it'll just fling all the information over, so there's no need to re-input all of that. But if you do need to input from scratch, just make sure that the window shows in the upper left-hand corner the actual year that you are planning input for, and so that's the 2020-2021 school year. And
oh, go ahead.
ultimately, after everybody has put in, presumably all of the officers, those I will be able to see all of them and download that list and create the individual listservs. So the presidents and the vice presidents will be on one listserv. All of the financial people, meaning financial secretaries or treasurers, will be on another one. And then communications will be on its own. The advocacy group, the arts advocacy and reflections group will have their own listserv. And I'm drawing a blank, there's one more, but anyway, those are the 5 dedicated groups. And when we send out information, we usually send it to that group of officers across all of those listservs, so that then you can pass it on to your membership or anybody else that we may have missed. So there isn't a group for every single position, like historian doesn't have their own group. The parliamentarians may or may not have their group. I can't remember if I created one for them. But if you feel like you don't have a dedicated group, then by all means, you can always hit communications@sfpta.org and the message will come to me or any of the other sfpta.org officers, which is on the main page of our SFPTA site. And you can email any of us and we will get your message and be able to respond accordingly. So if you go to the main page or main page of the website, the links I think are live. So go back to
That's
the
it.
the main page, the very front page. Yeah, the home page. Scroll down.
Oh, right.
There
Okay,
you go.
great. Okay, so that was a really fast overview of what we need to do to transition.
Carrie?
Michelle,
Yeah.
are there questions? And I think the PTA Easy demo would have been better if I had been able to get into PTA Easy. So I
Right.
acknowledge that.
And I just listed in the chat box Sharon's email address so that it's handy right there, so that if you are having trouble trying to figure that out, you can just contact her and she can walk you through it. And then I was just wondering, Carrie, if you could go back to the checklist page that you were showing.
Sure. Whoops. Uh-oh. Hold on a second. Maybe. There it is. This one or this one?
That one.
Yep.
Yeah, this one. So I just wanted to have this maybe up on the screen so people can see it and have a chance to just read through it while they're looking at it and see if there's any questions that come up for people right now. You can either raise your hand and I will look for it here in the participant box, or just type your question in the chat box. But let's just leave it up here for 30 seconds for people to look through and say, I have no idea what that means. You know, there's some of those basic. Did you mention transitioning check signers, Carrie? Did I miss doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. It looks like
Terry wants to add
to say something. All right, go ahead, Terry.
One thing you didn't cover, but is important, new officers need to be put into the Totem system.
Ah, thank you. So as Terry mentioned, you may or may not be aware that PTA has an online membership system called Totem. And every year, and so when you set up Totem, you input the names and contact information for your officers and for your bank account. And every year you need to go into Totem to change the names of your officers. Would you like me to demonstrate that now by going to Totem?
Sure.
I can do that. I don't know why it's called Totem, but there you go. That was the name of the company before it started doing PTA stuff. And if you don't have Totem, well, you should get Totem, because with Totem you can renew your memberships every year without having to chase people down. It's electronic, pretty great. Okay, let's see if this one saved my login. Ooh, yeah, yes. Whoa, what the heck? Totem, you are not giving yourself a very good example right now. That's a terrible demonstration. In fact, those are schools, I don't even know what they are. Hold on, we're going to try it again. Maybe this is not the best time to demonstrate Totem. So were there any questions? Oh yeah, it did sign me in, even though I got that kind of funky message. So you can see all the PTAs I joined, because look how super keen I am. I'm also one of these people that if you ask me to join your PTA, I'm like, yeah, sure, Liz, I'll join your PTA. And so this is my own page of the PTAs I have joined. You can also see where my kids went to school by looking at this page. And so in the message center, it will tell me that I need to renew my memberships. And I am actually in the second district PTA. So you'll have your own dashboard here where you update your own leaders, and you will have to update the new officers for who will receive Totem updates and information. And I believe it would be the president, secretary, and treasurer, because it's just like any other financial account. Did I forget anything, Terry, or is that pretty accurate?
It's a good start.
Thanks. Thank you. And on the CAPTA website itself, there's an introduction to Totem, and there's a video introduction as well. So you can learn more about Totem and how to set up your school to do electronic memberships by going to the California PTA website in the membership section. I'm going to detour to show you that. Sorry, PTA leaders. Run your PTA, building membership. And then when you go to building membership, it'll give you all these cool resources like themes. That's kind of cute, huh? But then it also has videos about membership. I don't remember if anyone was membership in this call, but look at all these things you can do for membership. I always read this stuff over the summer. I get so excited and then I forget about it. Also, we will receive membership envelopes will be sent to us at the district, and I have no idea how I'm going to get them to you. So you probably want to use Totem if you can at all. Because if the school, well, interoffice mail still works. If you can get to the school and pick up your mail, you'll get your envelopes. Look at all these great things you can copy. They've got logos. You can put logos or flyers, all kinds of stuff. There's a training center. That's what I would do this summer if I was new to this, and I might do it anyway, is just spend some time on the California PTA website. They've got tons of stuff you can use. Okay, were there any questions, or would you like Albert to talk a little bit about team building and morale?
Let's see. We have one question here. Where does the VP get registered if you have a president, secretary, and treasurer?
So you mean with listserv?
I am not sure. Catherine, do you want to, you can either type it in or I can unmute you. Hold on. Okay, you're unmuted, Catherine, if you want to explain your question a little more.
Oh, I was just noticing the three, you had a link and it just said there was 3 new members that you could register. So if it was only a limit of 3, is that the case? You had a big hyperlink, sorry, on this page.
Oh, for Totem.
Yep.
That was for to be administrators. That's to be administrators for Totem, right? It was on the Totem page, those 3?
I think so. It's
Yeah, that's just to be the administrators for the online membership system.
okay. So there's a 3-person limit then.
Oh, I don't know. Terry, is there a 3-person limit, or can they add more administrators?
You can have more than that. So a VP could be added as well.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question here about, so is Totem used for PTA membership dues? And the answer is yes.
That's exactly what it's used for.
Yeah, you can do all your membership through there. And is that also how they, and so we will pull our portion of membership dues directly from there also? It's
automatic. It's like magic.
It's magic. Wonderful. All we need is more magic.
Technology. Yeah.
And then
yeah, and so then you don't have to remit to us separately for those memberships because it's automatically deducted when their member pays their dues. And you can also set it up to add donations. So you can ask for your dues and then leave a bit there to say, hey, do you also want to give a donation?
There's another question here about, will there be any Totem training for new members offered by the 2nd District PTA? And I believe you said that there are some training videos, right, Carrie? But I think that we will also do a membership training, either as part of our formal training at the end of the summer, or I'm going to be I'll send around in the chat box a suggestion, like a survey for ideas for future 411 meetings. And one of the options that I listed in there was, building a membership campaign. So we can certainly offer a membership training by the end of the summer if you'd like, and we can include walking through how to do Totem and how to do, several other things that can help you with membership efforts at your school.
I think we were planning to do the Totem one earlier though, because so people can get families as they register for school, like new families. Does that sound familiar? Well, we'll figure it out and you'll know.
We'll let you know. We'll
let you know.
definitely make sure that you get the training, and we'll let you know. I don't see any other questions in the chat box, and I don't see any hands raised, so maybe we should move on to Albert, and then any questions that come up, even if it's about this stuff, we can catch them at the end.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now, or should I leave this checklist up, Albert?
Oh, I should unmute Albert. Sorry, everybody. I should.
I'll put the fun one up for Albert. I'll put start your year out right. Oh, I know something I didn't mention. Your boards may not be full yet. That's okay. Just put in the officers you already have into PTA Easy. And then like at the beginning of the school year, you may not have a membership chairperson right now, but you might get one from an incoming family, or someone over the summer decides they want to do it. You can change the officers anytime. So just get the ones you know in now.
Okay, Albert's unmuted, so if you want to get started, Albert.
All right. Okay, great. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Carrie. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about team building, and this is what's going to drive your PTA and drive your success, because we're not too worried about the numbers, the memberships, and the dollars that you raise, because you want to start with community building first and building your team, and then the money and the members will come later after that. Because when you create this foundational system where people want to join you versus they feel like they have to, it just makes the work for PTA a lot easier. And bottom line is just find commonality, and that's an easy one. You're all in it for your kids, right? But as PTA officers, you want to have a big group supporting that. And the first thing to do is create that environment where you have a circle of safety, where no one's judging each other, no one's thinking gotcha. There's no winners or losers here. We're all in it for the same reasons. And I think when people understand that, people drop the walls down and they just contribute and pour right in. Because that's how we were since the dawn of time, when we had, we were surrounded by saber-toothed tigers and no one could sleep by themselves. So if one stood guard, then everyone felt safe and they could go to sleep. And this is the same thing, and it hasn't changed. We all want something for our kids. We all want a great school, and we want it together. No one has any ulterior motives. So I think once you create that environment, everything will just follow. So when you have that community, and we could talk about ideas, membership numbers will follow. People will open their wallets a little more, and membership is important. And going back to the toolkit, everything you need is there, and they'll explain why membership is important, how it leads to advocacy and all that, and the best fundraisers out there. And we talked about this the last Saturday training, and over the next 411 Wednesdays, we'll touch upon every little topic. But getting back to community, the trick to building community is to find something that resonates with everyone in the school. We always say, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And this is your commonality, how to fight the common enemy or how to solve the same problem. And we're all encountering that. So take advantage of that, fire the community up and get together and, problem solve against that. On top of that, trying to keep business as usual. Elementary school, how do you fire up an elementary school? There's a lot of kindergarten energy coming into the school. Tap into it before you even start the school. Before this COVID-19 hit, a lot of schools had play dates before the school started. And the idea is to have people meet each other before you even go to day one and start introductions. When day one comes around, you already know everyone. It's already a community. So these ideas of meeting before the school actually starts gives you a head start on a school year. And you're gonna need every advantage you can get given the challenges that we're gonna have. And, you know, a lot of other ideas now that we can't go to a park and play, just get a list and email everyone and tap into their FOMO, their fear of missing out, that, hey, this is what we're gonna do this year, come join us and listen in. And then people in the back of their mind, they're not gonna wanna miss out, right? They wanna hear what's gonna happen. And a good example of that is this, you know, 411 Wednesday, you know, a couple weeks ago, we had Dr. Matthews talk about what's happening, and we just broke the record. We almost broke Zoom because we had so many people on the call. And that's kind of like the idea. You want to get as many people as you can and build that community as big as you can. And there's room for everyone. Many hands make work light. So leverage technology to your advantage. Create a Zoom Playdate. Send it out to the kindergartners. Meet your kids for the first time. And no one wants to miss out on that, right? No one wants to be the kid that is new, you know, before the school even started. So, you know, that's an idea for kindergartners. Same idea for, you know, 1st to 5th graders. Same idea for middle school and high school. And the reason I broke out elementary, middle, high school is every grade has their own focus and their own different individual issues. A high school, you know, parent might not want to, you know, be excited about K-5 anymore. They've been there, done that, right? But they're going to worry about colleges and curriculums and how to get ahead in the world. So find those commonalities, find things that resonate with the community, the unique communities that you have. And not every high school is the exact same one. And high school and middle school, elementary, they're all different. So you have to, as the representatives of your individual school, you have to understand what the heartbeat is and what are the hot topics, and call it out, surface the topics and bring people in. And I think that's a good start. And that's just for the summer. And just carry on that same idea throughout the school year and just keep the fire going. What you tend to see is everyone gets excited on the first day, and then attendance starts dropping over the year. The trick is to keep excited over the entire school year and keep the energy up. And don't get tired out, because know that you have support from your team members. Support each other. We're all on the same team. And being on the executive board, on the PTA, you're gonna, you know each other better, and you're going to be tighter. So there's going to be important, strong bonds there that you want to build on and carry on, and use those to carry on or carry you through the whole year. So those are my ideas for community building. It's been tested and at all levels, and there's always a trick to get people fired up. Over the last 50 years, memberships have been dropping, but here's our challenge in San Francisco. We're kind of in a little bit of a bubble here. Although we're dropping, you should set a goal for yourself at the beginning of the year to up your current membership. When you have your transitions, old board, new board, it's a great opportunity for lessons learned of how did the school year go? What could we have done better is what we're going to do this upcoming year. We only had 8,000 members. You know what? Next year, let's push for 9,000 members and just push the envelope.
That's the district, not the school.
Yeah.
8,000 in the whole city, not just.
I understand. but you get the idea. The idea is to keep building on what you built already, but make it better. And we always want to keep doing things better for our kids, right? We don't want to do status quo or go downhill. We always want to go uphill. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for letting me speak, and I'll take questions if
So,
that's hard.
so one, I just want to follow on to your excellent idea about building relationships over the summer. I suspect that some of us who have been in the same school for a couple of years, I suspect that over the summer, our principals may be asking us to come in and do some work on the school. And that's a good way to include people who may not be coming to PTA meetings, and really an opportunity to kind of reach out to folks that you haven't met yet or you haven't seen at any PTA meetings ever, because they're more likely to come and wash tables or plant a garden than come to a meeting. If they don't like meetings or if it's at the wrong time, you're offering them another chance to get to know each other. So that would be that's kind of a additional part of what you were suggesting.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always opportunities for random encounters and bridge building. Just, it could be, we had a COVID cleaning party, and parents are excited about helping pitch in to make their schools great for their kids. And maybe you don't have time for meetings, but you know what? Everyone has their own way of giving. And when we ask people to give, that doesn't necessarily always mean money. People give their time, people give their advice, people give their support. Everyone can contribute in some way, one form or another. We're all in the same boat, and we all have something to give. And the trick is to harness all that to build something big together.
Awesome.
I wanted to maybe add a little bit on sort of the community building is so important. I know we listed this section of the meeting as being sort of nice to have. Like, there are some things that we all have such different schedules and limited capacity. So there's some things we really need to be doing in our PTAs, and there's others that are sort of nice, but community building is really important. Another one that fits on that, it's great if you can do it, if you can make it work somehow, that I have found useful in the schools I've been a part of, is evaluating how the last year went. You know, Albert was talking about that a little bit, you know, in terms of setting membership goals, but I found it a really, I don't know, kind of an inspiring exercise to go through what the year was like, what our accomplishments were as a PTA, but also to reflect and think about what could we have done differently. And in fact, I put together a list when I was a PTA president of all of the successes we had, and I got really granular, you know, whether it was starting a new program or having an increased number of people attending something, or, you know, finding new volunteers, or helping, you know, a teacher with a certain project, whatever it was, listing all the accomplishments and then sending them out to the entire membership as the year ended. So people had something to feel good about, so that as they were coming into the next year, they knew this is a place where I want to be, because we're making a positive difference as a PTA, and it can be a helpful membership building exercise also. And then along with sort of the reflecting, you know, and all these great things that you do, is setting goals. If you set goals at the beginning of the year, then did we meet them? And if you didn't set goals, no big deal. The new board coming in can do that. And so you might want to make recommendations as an outgoing board, saying, here are some things we think you might want to focus. It's of course your choice, you're a new board, but when we're reflecting on this year, what we'd like to see happen, we just have a few ideas, and then the new board can take that on. And if you are going to set new goals as a new board, there are some good resources on the state PTA website about how to set SMART goals. And those are, and if you've used that, maybe you've used it professionally, what SMART means, S-M-A-R-T, is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. That's the kind of goals. So you're very specific in what they are. I'd recommend not setting more than 3 goals, but it's a good team building exercise too, to figure out what is it that we really want to be doing with our PTA and how we want to focus our efforts, because it's really easy with lots and lots of ideas to just get spread too thin, and it can help you focus, especially because people tend to have a lot going on in their lives. So if you can focus your efforts as a group, then you will have better chances of being successful, and it'll help you define what success means for your own school. So that is a recommendation I would have if you can find the time to do it. in some sort of a virtual meeting with your new board in the next month or two.
And related to that is, I know that next year will look different than last year. And so there will be a lot of programs you won't be able to have for different reasons. And so it could be a really great opportunity to take a hard look at some of the programs you've been running and see if you want to keep doing it, or maybe you want to do something else. This is an opportunity to take away the things that aren't working.
Yeah, and the one takeaway here is your community is your strength. Your membership is your strength. PTA is a membership association. We draw our strength from our members. The more you have, the more dedicated, the more power you have, the more things you can accomplish. And again, many hands make work light. And as Michelle said, SMART goals, getting things granular is great, because the old saying goes, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So when you put down a target, you have something to shoot for a year, and it helps keep you focused and keeps you pointed on the direction you want to go in.
Which reminds me, your SMART goal isn't a dollar amount. Your SMART goal is what that dollar amount is paying for. So your SMART goal, if you're saying you want to raise, $20,000 next year, your goal is actually you want to raise $20,000 for reading specialists so that 5 more kids per grade level will have better attention in a year over the course of 6 months. So think about what the outcomes are that the dollar amounts are paying for, because I know it's real easy for people to set financial goals, but those are meaningless because, they're somewhat meaningful, but raising $20,000, if you don't know the cost of a reading specialist, is just $20,000. So you want to say, what is your goal as a PTA? Is it to build your community, to improve academic outcomes, to, whatever it is, to get technology into everybody's hands, to increase art classes to once a day? That's really what your goals are.
All right, maybe we could go through, there's a few questions that were submitted ahead of time, so it would be great if we can go through some of those. I haven't seen any other new ones coming up in the chat box, but everybody, if you have any, throw them in there. So let's just go through a few of these. All right, we had one that was about audits. This person said, we never did a mid-year audit. Are there any tips on how to train our new auditor when they don't know our accounting procedures yet? Were we gonna have Terry take that?
Terry's gonna answer that one.
Go ahead, Terry.
Terry's going to answer that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. At this point, it's early June. You've had your last meeting and of the general membership. So if you haven't done a mid-year audit at this point, you're best to go ahead and just focus on doing a year-end audit. When we talk in these terms, we're talking about the year of the PTA. Your PTA years run from the end of June or 1st of July to the end of June. Typically, there are a couple of PTAs that are off by a month, but most of the PTAs start at the 1st of July, and so the year end is at the end of June. Your mid-year audit would be typically as of the end of December. And if you haven't done a mid-year audit, which you're supposed to do mid-year, and now we're at June, you're better to just go ahead and do a year-end audit as of the end of June. The question also had how do you get to train or inform your new auditor of your accounting procedures. Really, that is the job of the outgoing treasurer or the outgoing board. If the treasurer's not there, somebody needs to step up and to work out and teach the auditor what they're seeing when they see the financial reports that are required to do the audit. The audit generally requires reconciling the bank statements to the accounting results that you have on your own books. And the person that's going to be doing your audit needs to be given access to all of your records and be instructed on what they're looking at. So the outgoing treasurer is required to set up that meeting and hold the hand of the auditor until the auditor understands what it is that they're seeing. Then the auditor can do the reconciliations and check on the work that the treasurer has done. That's my general answer. If there are questions on that, let me know what your questions are.
Thanks, Terry. And maybe Terry, you can, people can, if you have follow-up questions, put them in the chat box, or if Terry wants to put his email in the chat box, he can. Next question was actually from a teacher liaison who asked what their role is and what are the expectations of their role. So I'll answer that one. So some of our PTAs have a role on their board for a teacher. They have different titles, but some of them call them a teacher liaison. And that's often just a representative from the staff, from the teachers at your school who attends to your board. There is not a specific job description for this, but my advice and personal experience around having a teacher liaison on the board is that it's a tremendous opportunity to create a deeper partnership between teachers, parents, and then, as you all know, your principal also is as part of your board, in their role. And so there's an opportunity for there to be a lot of great communication and partnership and alignment. And I have found it effective if the teacher liaison reports back on what's happening in the PTA at the staff meetings. They can bring back notes or a summary of what the PTA meetings are like, what the PTA board meetings are like, and let the staff know about that. And then if there are requests from the PTA, because often our PTA meetings are at times when there's not a high attendance from teachers, then the teacher liaison can bring back requests. For instance, if you find that you have some funds that you would like to spend and you want to have teachers' input on what is most needed at our school, or reversing that, saying, what do we really need at our school that there's not room for in our site budget, that you ask the teachers for their input on that. And so maybe there's a way that the teacher liaison can orchestrate that input giving. If there are other needs that the teachers are seeing, it should be seen as a partnership, and that person is a great liaison. And I will also let you know that in my experience also, teachers don't want to be seen as representing every teacher voice at a school, that they will see themselves as being a teacher who has an opinion, and that they're going to they'll share their own, but they won't often want it to be taken as representative of every single teacher's opinion. So viewing them really as a liaison is the best way that you can empower them to be effective in their role and have them go back to their peers for input. But other than that, there aren't really specific roles. But if there are other folks on the call that have ideas on what's been effective for teacher liaisons at their school, please chime in.
That sounds about right to me.
Okay.
I think it's also important it's also important to remember that, or not to remember, but I always think of PTA more like the way that PTA makes decisions is more like a trade union than a nonprofit. And teachers will understand instinctively that because they're all members of unions. So they'll know that when they come forward with their suggestions and their ideas, the general membership has to vote on it rather than one person just writing a check. So it's always, I find it really easy to work with teachers because they seem to instinctively understand the decision-making structure of PTA when it comes to making school site-wide decisions. That's just a little insight for me, and a shout out to the awesome teachers that have been on my board.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, there's actually just a couple more questions we'll go through before we close up for the night. There's a question here about, what do you do when an officer does not fulfill their role, but also does not resign? Was Albert going to take that one?
Yeah, I could take that one. I think you always start off with a talk with the person. There might be a miscommunication. You always want to assume best intentions, that they join for a reason, a positive reason to pitch in and help out. Maybe they don't understand the role. Maybe they're busy. Maybe you don't know what the situation is. So first thing to do is to talk to them, and you could pull up a job description from CAPTA Toolkit, and it will tell you what that position will do specifically. What are the roles? What are the responsibilities? And then just define those expectations up front, and then measure them over a period of time. Do check-ins. And you could even, ask softly, do you need help? Help me understand some of the problems that you're dealing with, help me help you. I'm here to help. We're on the same team. Just be a good teammate, and just talk it out, basically.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Albert, around expectations. Because sometimes folks who are volunteering, I mean, we're all volunteers, they may have in their own head that they expect you to respond to emails within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not responding to emails in 24 hours, they may think, oh my gosh, this person doesn't care. They're not taking it seriously. But you may not have told them that you expect them to respond to emails within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it's always good to say, what are your expectations around communications? And also, how do they know when they have done the thing that you asked them to? So they may be thinking, you don't need to micromanage me. I've got it. And you just haven't heard from them what they're doing. They may have it. So that's why you are absolutely right. Be sure to check in with people and manage everyone's expectations.
I think communication is we could probably answer most questions with communication.
I do.
It's such an important part of effective leadership and effective partnership. And I wanted to just actually just throw a plug for this before we move on to the next question, which is, you said, Carrie, around expectations. Both of you said around expectations. All of you who are new officers on this call, manage your expectations with yourself. And there may be somebody who came from before you who was able somehow to put in a certain amount of effort and time because they have a different life situation than you do. You don't have to do things the same way that they did. You get to do them your way. There are some basic expectations the PTA has to keep your organization so that you can steward your finances that your members have donated, so that you are in compliance to hold your 501c3 status. There's some very, very basic expectations in your role. And beyond that, it's you all deciding what your goals are, you deciding how to bring yourself to the role. And it's not about doing things exactly the same way that someone before you did them. So I find that to be a really important point to bring up in all new officer training, so that you are kind to yourselves and don't kill yourselves, because we want you to still be around and be part of PTAs after this year is over. So I just wanted to say that. Let's do another couple of questions and then we'll let everybody go.
Do you like how I've been showing you where to find all this stuff on the website?
I have noticed that. It's so handy.
Very
On white. Yeah. Let's see.
Although I couldn't find the communications thing. I didn't want to fiddle around too much. Oh wait, maybe it's in managing conflict.
I am going, actually, there's a couple of questions here that I'm going to just answer very quickly, and then we can talk about one that might take a minute more. There was a question about, is there a minimum number of volunteer hours required per year for the annual historian report? The answer is no. You're just supposed to enter those number of volunteer hours and the IRS actually assigns an amount. So there's a way that it's for you to be able to represent what your membership has given sort of in kind to your school, but there's no minimum number in that number of volunteer hours required. Related to the thing that I just said, everybody does what they can do, but there's no requirement around that. Question about how often do bylaws get changed and how do we know?
Oh, I got that
Carrie,
one.
you want to take that? It's a very quick answer, but Carrie, you want to take it?
Yes, California State PTA recently agreed that bylaws need to be redone every 3 years. And so you can find out in your current bylaws when the last time it was that you did them. We also keep a list at the district, but we wait for you to contact us. And the person you contact is parliamentarian Melissa Mountain. Whoops. Ta-da. I'm getting really good at this switching between screens thing. So if you have a question about your bylaws, maybe you can't find them, or maybe the last time they were revised was 2012, you can reach out to Melissa and she can help you get started on doing new ones or updating the ones you have. And the basic process is the board nominates a committee, usually of 1 or 2 people, to review the old ones. They propose the changes. You give the changes to us. We send them to California State PTA. They send them back, and then they're filed.
Great. There's another question.
Oh, you can do it electronically too. Sorry, my bad. You can do it electronically.
Carrie, you want to keep talking? There's a question here about the historian's report. Probably lots of people don't know what that even is. Can you talk quickly about what the historian's report is and when it's due and how they submit it?
So the historian's report is, to me, it's a little bit of a blank slate, because the minimum thing you're doing is reporting how many volunteer hours your PTA volunteers did, how many volunteer hours you did. But your historian report can be in whatever format you want. I mean, you can do a scrapbook for your school. At Sunnyside, we used to do a big bulletin board with photos from throughout the year. And then we would put the number of volunteer hours that went with each project. And then the school could go, whoa, this is a pretty big commitment. But we didn't want to scare people, but we did want to kind of give a shout out to the folks who've been the program leaders. The historian report is submitted to the 2nd district. We don't have a historian right now, so you can send it to secretary at SFPTA, president at SFPTA, and we compile them and submit them to the state PTA before June 30th so that they can include it in their own volunteer hours statistics. So that can be really fun and almost no pressure. Historian is a great position because you get to sit on the board, but you don't have a budget. So that's cool.
Great, thank you. And then I think this is the last question that I've got that was submitted ahead of time, is how do you communicate with each other? Through an app, emails, Slack? Should it be an all in one place for the record? Does it matter? Do we want to talk a little bit about how we communicate?
So
I can do that one.
Yeah, Sharon is an expert in that for sure.
I don't know about an expert, but I've had a lot of experience. For those of you who don't know, it's like my youngest child just promoted out of 5th grade at Alamo, but my older boys went through Peabody, Roosevelt, and Galileo. And the answer to the communication, both internally, meaning within your board, and externally to the outside parent community or the outside school community, is a little bit different. You choose within your board how best to communicate. I saw in the chat box somebody said we're creating a text stream so that you can easily communicate. That's great. Just make sure that there aren't any votes or decisions that are happening that way, because those should all be documented. So for instance, if somebody says, hey, we want to spend blah, 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 or we got a request to spend blah, blah, blah on XYZ, that should not really go through a text stream, since there'd be no documentation as at some point in the future if somebody asked, how did you determine you were going to move forward with that? And there's no real documentation to that. So just kind of keep that in mind, that it should happen within your executive board meeting. Not even really through email, but at least email, there's a paper trail of the discussion at hand, but it should really be within an actual meeting itself where it's documented. With respect to communicating to your school community, elementary school parents tend to be a little bit more attentive to communication. Middle school and high school, the attentiveness tends to drop off, but there are still ways that you can utilize that communication or broadcast your message, and that is then to focus more on your students and or within your community itself. You need to kind of assess. So the answer for one community may not be the same for another community, depending on the language focus of a said community. So I'm going to pick on Galileo, where there was a very large Chinese population. And the executive vice president that I had at Galileo spoke little to no English. And I was like, how's this going to work? But she was a dynamo because she communicated with the Chinese community like beyond my wildest dreams, because they were using WeChat. So that was their main way of communicating. So in essence, you just don't want to try and jam a square peg into a round hole. It's just like, let's look at your community and let's see how best that community tends to communicate and go that way. Find someone that could handle that piece of the communication. Within the high school level, again, we had students who were very active. So we tapped students within our executive board, like, okay, students, this is your message to get out. The same kind of role like the teachers have when they're sitting there to broadcast the message back to the rest of the staff. During a staff meeting, the students have their own way of communicating, whether it's through Snap, yeah, none of them use Facebook, that would be us, or any of the other social media, whatever. They know how to communicate a message out wide, and so you utilize them in that sense. Within elementary school, you look again at your community and what works best. And sometimes if you don't know, then you need to poll your audience and find out, what is the communication preference that you have? Is it text? Is it email? Or do I need a hard copy because I don't have any access to reliable electronic source? And you may need to utilize right now in this environment your school secretary, because the school district cannot give you email addresses. So if you don't have those email addresses right now, then put together a form that the school secretary can possibly forward out to the parents who have registered and said, your PTA would like you to fill out this form so that they can learn how to better communicate with you. It's optional whether or not parents are going to want to fill out the form, but more times than not, especially in this environment, that if you're reaching out to families because there is such an isolation that's happening because everybody is at home, that they will probably welcome the contact from the PTA in terms of, great, I will have a lifeline. So if I have a question, I can actually ask somebody who might know the answer to, or if they don't know, they could probably figure out who might know the answer to it. So it's a lifeline that you're giving them. It's an opportunity, and you can look at this whole situation as a stress ball, or you can look at it as an opportunity to tweak your system and to make it better, and to look for other avenues that might work better. And this may be a great opportunity to look at going electronic versus running off paper copies, because obviously nobody's going to be receiving paper copies, but the electronic version of communication is probably there. And right now, because so many students and so many families were given district resources through the distance learning thing, hopefully they've all retained those same resources, so they have a reliable means of communication right now. So capitalize on that and use it until we figure out where this whole thing is going. And there's a lot more that I can say, but I know our time is short, and I want to honor the time commitment that you gave me. Michelle put my email address in there, so if there are other things that you have questions on or you want to expand on the conversation that I started, then please do email me, and I would definitely can communicate back to you that way.
And if there's enough interest, we can also hold a separate communication session. If people are looking for ways to go about doing that, that's something, of course, we can set up a Zoom meeting and
Put it on the form.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wait, there's one other thing. Sorry. So within the school community, you have PTA, you have the regular school community, you have ELAC, which is the English Language Advisory Committee, and then you also have the SSC. There's nothing wrong with having a PTA officer or member sit in on those meetings and share what's happening in the PTA, as long as you meet with the chair or ahead of time said, I'd like to have a little time to talk, because that's what happened at Roosevelt with Albert. Albert was chairing the ELAC group, and it was a true role reversal for me walking into that meeting, where the meeting was conducted in Chinese. I am Chinese, but I understand like that much of it. And so when it came time and I had to speak, it was in English, but they all laughed at me when I tried to do a little bit of Chinese. But they got the general meeting, but they felt very included, because not a lot of them can attend a PTA meeting, but they felt like they were in the know. And how best to help their students if questions came up. So.
Great. All right, I think we need to close it up. We've gone over time. Thank you for everybody who's come. It looks like there weren't other outstanding questions, but I'm sure there are questions that have come up. You should feel free to reach out to any of us through the district PTA website, where our emails are, and there will be more opportunities to engage with us through the trainings that will come, towards the end of the summer. And I think we very likely will have some 411 meetings. Probably we may not have them every week during the summer, but we'll have them periodically. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for coming. Congratulations on the end of school.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, I'll unmute everybody if you want to say goodbye as you're heading out. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate
Good
it.
night.
Second district.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Sharon. Bye.
There.